Hey, what's up guys, it's DisturbedGaming. I'm going to be showing you guys my all high-end build that I consider to possibly be better than Alphabridge. I don't think it's necessarily better than Alphabridge, at least wise in terms of flat damage, but it has a lot of, I guess, overall versatility that's really nice when using a high-end build, and also it's a lot of fun to use, and it's off meta, so it's just generally fun to use it. Unfortunately though, I'm not going to have gameplay for you guys. This is just due to the fact that I've been really busy lately and I haven't gotten a lot of gameplay, and when I show gameplay, I want to actually have good gameplay. And also my build is a little bit, it's kind of far from min-max. It's not perfect. I've spent hours upon hours upon hours trying to get the gear, and it's just extremely rare. And then of course when I actually get it, RNG just likes to shaft me and give me really low rolls, so the gameplay wouldn't be fully representative of the build because a lot of my pieces just straight up aren't perfect for it. But hopefully, as of right now, I'm just going to be showing you guys the build, explaining it to you how it's really good, what pieces to go for, and how it's a lot of fun to use, and just going over a bunch of things that are really important when talking about the build. And then hopefully in the future, once I get some possibly better gear, or I just end up doing some gameplay, something I can either upload gameplay or stream it or something like that. So let me know in the comments if you'd really like me to add some gameplay in the future. But for now, I'm just going to be going over the build and explaining to you guys how I think it's pretty good and how it can possibly be better than Alphabridge if implemented correctly. So starting off, let's go over every single high-end individually. Don't pay attention to my stats right now. Of course, my DPS stat isn't going to be as high as it is with Alphabridge, because with Alphabridge you get the 3 set, which is 5% flat weapon damage, and then you also get all the weapon talents, which add up together, and then that just inflates your sheet DPS. So my DPS stat isn't going to be high that much anyways, and I mean, you don't really want to, you want to take what the DPS stat has to say with a grain of salt anyways. But also my toughness is pretty damn low, due to the fact that my armor rolls aren't great, and I'll go into individual pieces here once I'm done talking about guns and just the gear set pieces that I have. So let's just go into every single individual high-end first, and then we'll go into rolls, etc. So starting off with the chest piece, you're going to be rolling with Barrett's chest. This is pretty much a must. This is due to the fact that on Barrett's you're going to be getting the extra 10% armor here and an extra 5% damage when you have one skill on cooldown. No other chest piece in the game is as good as this as of right now. There's Reckless chest and then there's Vigorous chest, but when using the all high-end build you have to use, of course, all high-ends, and Barrett's chest is just simply the best as of right now. The reason I'm not using this one is because the armor roll is much better, but the firearms roll is pretty trash and it doesn't have health on it, so that's why I'm not running that one. It's also firearms, and this one is stamina, so just in case some of you guys are wondering why I had that one in there, I'm not going to be using it, or you were wondering why I didn't use that one, because it has more armor. So yeah, for the chest piece, you're going to be running Barrett because the armor and the extra damage is insane. On the mask, I decided to go for Tenacious. There are a couple other options that you can go for, but let me just explain why I did Tenacious. I did this because since you're not using Alphabridge, you're missing out on a lot of damage, and the only way that you can really make up for that is by using shortbow knee pads, Bliss holster, Skull MC gloves, and Tenacious mask. And since Alphabridge is giving you such a ridiculous amount of damage, I feel kind of crippled if I feel like I'm not doing, like, I'm just so used to doing so much damage with Alphabridge that I feel crippled and I just don't feel right not doing as much damage. And Tenacious is 10% damage after I use a medkit. And since I play solo, I'm constantly doing medkits, you know, when I'm 1v3 and 1v4 and stuff like that. So getting an extra 10% damage is actually really great. But other masks you can get, there's Refresh, which is when you use a heal at below 30% health. It gives you, or when you're in your last health segment, I mean, it gives you a 30% additional bonus to that heal. So if I were to use a med kit in my last segment like I usually do to get critical save, then it would give me 30% additional health as it would normally. Same thing with a first aid. Refresh is pretty good for overall survivability, but I like Tenacious again just for the extra damage, just to make up for the fact that I'm not running Alphabridge. And I don't feel that Refresh is actually that fantastic, though it is a pretty good mask. And then you can also go with a Pharaoh's Oxygen mask, so you don't have to deal with flame tears and whatnot, but I don't have a good Pharaoh's Oxygen mask, and I've heard that it's even not that great when using it, because generally speaking you want to avoid flame turrets in the first place because they do a lot of damage, and if you just run in there guns blazing while on fire and you're just still shooting, you're still going to be taking a lot of damage from the flame turret regardless of the fact that you're not going to be on fire. It is helpful, but I think it's just better overall to run Tenacious and then just avoid that, because not everybody in the world is running a flame turret, you know? Moving on to knee pads, this is pretty simple. Shortbow knee pads, these are absolutely insane. I even started using these with my Alphabridge set, even though they're pretty trash rolled. But look at this, look at this. Let me just demonstrate. So let's say I'm 1v1ing some guy right here or something, or 1v2ing or something, and then I'm like, alright, this guy's pretty low health, I'm just going to chuck a nade on him, right? Usually I want to try to lead the person into my nade, but with shortbow you don't even have to do that. It's just, oh, that person's right there, look, boom. Look how ridiculous that is. Boom. It's so stupid. The nade just go off instantly. It's impossible to avoid a flame nade because of the radius, And then same thing with shock nades too. It's just so stupid. Look at, oh, I see you right there. Oh, and then you just shock them and you kill them. It's so crazy. Short bow knee pads are just ridiculous. So for the knee pads, you're definitely going to be running short bow. These are going to take you a ridiculous amount of time to get if you're not lucky. I got these out of field proficiency caches, Warrengate, but you can get them from Madison Field Hospital. It'll just take you forever to farm. I did survival a million years in a row and still never got them, but I ended up getting them out of field proficiency caches, oddly enough. But short bow knee pads are just crazy, and then there isn't any other knee pad alternatives. That's why you're going to be running with the short bow knee pads. The backpack, pretty simple here. The specialized, you can also do like inventive or something, but it's while you're at full health, and specialized is already going to be giving you more than that would be anyways in terms of electronics. So gonna be going for specialized. It's not that big of a deal with the build. I mean, it just makes your booster shot heal you for more, I guess. That's pretty much all it's good for. There's just no better backpack to really use. There's no better alternative, so that's why you're gonna be using a specialized. For the gloves, Skull's MC gloves pretty much, because it's damage increased by 16%. This is going to be way better than Savage ever could, because Savage is only 7% crit chance, and even if you have max crit damage and max crit chance, theoretically speaking, that is not going to ever be able to equate to 16% flat damage. So that's why you're going to be running Skull's MC gloves. And then on the holster here, I have Nimble. I've heard that Bliss holsters are really good because you can pull out the pistol, and then like with a 9.3R, you can shoot constantly, get a bunch of damage stacks, and then you can actually EMP the person, which is crazy, to where they can't use a heal or anything. So with a 9.3R, I think Bliss holster would be really good. I'm not sure if you can shoot somebody, damage stack, and then like Striker switch to your main primary, and then have that damage carry over. If you can, then Bliss is absolutely insane and definitely way better than Nimble. But if you can't, then it's really only usable with your pistol. It's still great though to be able to EMP people, and if you're using a 9.3R, you can get harmful on people. But the thing about using this build is that since you're not using Alphabridge, you want to use a double-barreled sawed-off to be able to get extra talents like Competent and Adept. So I'm not really sure if it'd be worth it to run Bliss holster or not, but I don't even have one, so I can't really test it. So I'm sure Bliss is great. I see Wids using it. I haven't really talked to him personally about if it's good or not. I may ask him that in the future, but I don't even have one, so not really worth talking about it. But the reason I went for Nimble as opposed to Sturdy or something is because Nimble's actually pretty good. Let me just demonstrate it. So I'm gonna nade myself right here, just to show how much health I go down, and then I'm going to go from this cover right here, just like how you would use attack advance. I guess I can't go over to that one. Oh, I can't. Alright, I have to wait for my bleed to go away. I can't do it while I'm bleeding. Can I, here, I'm going to name myself again and then use the first aid. My bad, guys. Alright, so my bleed's off. Alright, and then my health is regenning, but let me just show. That was a pretty shitty demonstration. But it didn't work because you have to be in combat. Okay, never mind. Yep, I forgot you have to be in combat. It's not the best holster in the world. That was a really bad demonstration. But you have to be in combat, and then it heals 2% of your max health for every 1 meter. But keep in mind, though, 1 meter is not very far. It's like, I think it's about from where I'm standing right here to about right there. So 1 meter, I mean, I go from right here. That's like 5 or 10%, or no, it's like easily 10% of my health. And then just from doing this, just in a couple seconds, it's like 20% of my health. So if I'm done killing some people and I don't want to use a make it or something, and my health straight up isn't regenerating because it says that I'm stuck in combat, I can just do this over and over again to get my health back up pretty quickly. You do have to remember to do it though, but it's a nice addition to the build, just adding you a bit of survivability, which is always great. It's always welcome to do that. Again, Bliss might end up being better, but this is really good. But Sturdy holster and all the other holsters just straight up don't even hold a candle to this, because you have to, those holsters rely on you being covered. This is just doing cover to cover movements. You can do it while not fighting people, so that's why it's pretty good. Alright, so that's all the high-end pieces. That's and just explanations as to why I went for those specific pieces. I know it took a little bit, but I mean, it's really important because this is all high-end build, and it is all solely reliant on each individual piece. If you mess up one of these pieces, the build could end up suffering from that. So now let's move on into guns. Right now I'm using this LVOAC with Unforgiving, Destructive, and Responsive, and the reason I'm doing this is because my lightweight M4 does not have good rolls. It has Adept on it and Destructive, or I mean, what am I saying? I mean, it has Destructive, Responsive, and Adept, but I don't really want Adept in running this build. That's pretty much just a waste of talent there, and I really want to be able to have Unforgiving. Even though I am losing a large amount of base damage with this, I still think that Unforgiving is going to be more beneficial, because I'm going to be at, I'm going to be below I'm going to be missing one health segment rather frequently, so getting an extra 10% damage is much more beneficial, because 10% of 19.3 is 1900 as opposed to an extra 1200 base damage. It's theoretically speaking more. You do get Adept from, I would get Adept from using this, but Adept isn't that great because I'm not stacking a bunch of crit chance, and I'd rather have Unforgiving up all of the time. It is kind of a toss-up between the guns, but mainly speaking, it's really important just to get 3 really good talents. I think the 3 best talents would be pretty much the way that I have it set up here. Unforgiving, Destructive, Responsive. You could also go for Unforgiving, Responsive, and then competent, but I don't think competent is going to be as good as destructive would be, because destructive is going to be up all the time. And then to substitute for competent or adept, I have this double-barreled sawed-off here, which is 182, which you can still buy, by the way. It's at the blueprint vendor there, so if you run an Alphabridge or something, I definitely recommend buying this, because all you got to do is you can just pull it out, and then you get competent and adept after using like a pulse, and then you just switch to your primary, and then you still have it there. As you can see right here, my base damage went up all the way to 21k. So then every time that I'm fighting people, I basically have unforgiving, destructive, responsive, competent, and adept up all the time. And then when I go to use a heal, I can use the booster shot, and then I get competent and everything again. I didn't have my double barrel sawed off right there, but yeah, that's pretty crazy doing that. Of course, LVOACs are still going to be the best guns in the game for your primary there, so you're definitely going to be wanting to run those. But then, since you're not running Alphabridge, you don't have to have an LVOAC in your secondary. So what I decided to use was an M44. So before I flag rogue on people, I can just snipe them, and then that'll do like a good 70% of their health usually, because the classic M44 has a lot of base damage. Then if I get competent off and I possibly crit, I'm doing a lot of extra damage with this, and also it's just fun to be able to quickscope people. Mine isn't best rolled. I mean, I've gotten so many M44s, but I just get trash rolls on snipers. I don't know why. I have brutal destructive. I'd prefer to probably have something else here. I'm not really sure. I think vicious would be pretty good just for the extra crit chance. Deadly maybe, not really though, because I'm not stacking a lot of crit chance. Unforgiving maybe if my health is a little bit low. I don't know. There's not a lot of great talent options on M44s or snipers in general, because you can't really get responsive. You could get competent though, but again, I do have that on my double barreled sawed off. So brutal is great and destructive is great if you plan on using one of these. And then the other talent is, I think vicious is probably going to be your best bet there. Unforgiving maybe. Let me see if there's any other talents that I may be forgetting. Deadly maybe. I have a bunch of FAMASs in my inventory. Yeah, I mean, all those talents that I mentioned are pretty much going to be the best for that. Swift also is actually pretty nice. Maybe Provident, but no, you'd have to have a 182 for that, so never mind. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing in terms of the guns. Again, LVOACs or M4s are still going to be the best guns in the game. Then for the secondary, it's pretty much up to you. I just like to use a sniper because it's fun to quickscope people. So going on into individual gear rolls, this is pretty straightforward stuff. For the chest piece, I like to go for armor and health. Health just for overall extra toughness, which is pretty nice. On the mask, since I am really low on crit chance, I like to go for crit chance. Unfortunately, this is only 3%. You can get up to 4%, which I think maybe even 5. No, just 4%, actually. Yeah, could get 4%, but it is what it is. You can also go for health on this or scope power. It just really depends on what you like to do. But since this build, I'm not having savage gloves or anything, it's nice to have a little bit of crit chance because it's impossible to avoid crit damage. And then on the minor attributes, you want to make sure you get enemy armor damage. On the knee pads, you want armor, and then in the minor attributes, try to get enemy armor damage. My pieces are pretty much trash all around the board. I mean, on my short bow knee pads, I'm missing 200 armor for max and 100 firearms. My Barrett chest is missing 200 armor, and the stamina is pretty good, but I'm missing a lot of armor there. And I'm also missing the enemy armor damage on my short bow knee pads, which is unfortunate there. So I mean, overall, if my pieces were way better, my toughness would just be like almost 500k, which would be crazy if I actually had like near god roll pieces. But fortunately, my pieces aren't the best in the world. But yeah, you want to try to get enemy armor damage on the knee pads because that's just flat out extra damage. My specialized backpack is pretty decent. Armor could be a higher, about 50 or 70 or 50 to 90 range, I'm pretty sure is how much higher it could be, which would be pretty nice. But overall, it's pretty good. Of course, you want to be getting armor on the backpack, and then ammo capacity is rather nice there. And then on the Skull MC gloves, I'm missing a ridiculous amount of armor again, and my stamina is really bad. And then you want to make sure to get AR damage, crit chance, and crit damage there just for the overall damages. I was actually considering rolling for more stam there just because my toughness is so low with this build, but I decided to go for crit chance because, like I was stating before when talking about the mask, you're using a lot of crit damage, or I mean, you're losing a lot of crit chance when using this build because you don't have savage or anything, and it's really hard to stay away from crit damage with it being on precision, with it being on your pulse, with it being on the minor attributes on your weapon mods, with it being on your gloves. It's impossible to avoid crit damage, but it's pointless to have like 100% crit damage and then no crit chance. So that's why I inevitably end up rolling for crit chance in certain spots, and on your gloves there's nothing else better to really go for. then the holster, of course, going to be going for armor. In terms of my mods, as of right now, I'm using all stamina mods with armor, of course, just to max out your toughness. And then for my performance mods, I'm running first aid self heal just to make it to where my booster shot heals me for even more, which is greatly complemented by the fact that I have specialized on, which gives me a decent amount more skill power. Moving on to the skills that I use, of course, like I said before, I was running booster shot. This gives me a self heal of 88k, which isn't that impressive, but I do get a good amount of damage resistance and extra damage, as you can see right here when I use my pulse. My heal, my toughness goes up almost 100k, and then my DPS goes up a good amount too. Again, take the DPS stat with a grain of salt, but it still is a huge buff. Getting that to last about 10 seconds is really nice. The extra toughness and the extra damage. You could also go for overdose for the extra healing amount and the over shield that it will give you, but personally speaking, I just like to go for booster shot for the damage resistance and whatnot when I run solo. And then of course I'm going to be going for scrambler or attack scanner pulse. This is because I run solo all the time, and scrambler is really nice to proc competent and whatnot, and then it's also good just to know where people are, and to show, and when people use pulse against me, I can counter it so they don't know where I am, so I can come up and sneak up on them. But if you're running in a team, Seeker Mines with Cluster are really good. You can use a flashbang to EMP people so they can't use their skills and it stutters them. You can use a flame turret or a shock turret, even though I probably hate you to no end if you use these, but it is what it is. You can use an immunizer if you're fighting people that are using these cancerous things. It is what it is. You can pick really whatever you want, just depends on your team. Same thing with your ult, just depends on your team. Usually I run recovery ult by myself, but recently I've just been messing around with tack ult just for fun. But usually I run recovery ult if I'm going to try hard and trying to survive. In terms of talents, these are pretty much just the same as they always are. Going for adrenaline here, so when I use a med kit, this is when I play solo. When I don't play solo, I actually switch this off to combat medic, as combat medic is going to be the best with a group, because using a med kit just gives it to your teammates, and you're all going to be using med kits in like a proper 4v4. Everybody's going to be spamming med kits, so having it heal your whole team is extremely beneficial. But I usually run adrenaline so that when I use a med kit, I get a full overheal if somebody doesn't shoot me off of it, which can end up being nicer. There isn't really any other good talent to substitute this for. Maybe one is none or strike back, but every once in a while adrenaline really helps me out. But otherwise I go for on the move, kill a hostile while moving to increase or reduce incoming damage. This is great for when somebody's dead on the ground. I just shoot them in the face and then I get a lot of damage resistance. Or if I'm killing an NPC or something, I get a lot of damage resistance there as well. On the move is just all around speaking are really good. You can also run steady hands if you're having problem with recoil on console or something, but on PC it's really not that big of a deal. But steady hands, if you're having like a big problem with vertical recoil on an M4 or something, you can try it out and see if it works for you, but it does rely on entering cover every 10 seconds to properly utilize it. But just throwing it out there, this is a talent that you might want to try out if you're having those recoil problems. But moving on, last talent I go for is precision headshot to hostile to pulse them for 10 seconds. The only reason I do this is because it actually gives me the native pulse bonus, which is going to be 7% crit chance and 7% crit damage, which is always nice to get an extra amount of crit chance and whatnot when people might be using concealed pulse or something like that, or when my pulse is on cooldown. And I also use it against NPCs to know where they are and to just get overall extra damage on them. And then you can decide to use one as none if you're ADSing a lot, like you're on console and everybody's ADSing, but usually on PC I don't like to use this because sometimes it'll jam my gun and I usually hip fire, so not all my shots are headshots, so it's not really going to be hugely beneficial to my DPS. But if I'm running a PvE, I usually run one as done because I'm ADSing and I get a lot of headshots. But again, in PvP, I like to go for the damage resistance talents like critical save and whatnot, and then I go for precision, which is like 1 damage talent, and then 1 is none, maybe if I'm doing like a 1v1 or something. But yeah guys, the video was pretty long as it is, but I just wanted to give as much information as possible because this build can be pretty fun to use, guys. I was using it a little bit and I was enjoying myself. I don't know how I feel about it being possibly better than Alphabridge or not. If you get the pieces to where they're rolled perfectly, it could end up being better than Alphabridge, because Alphabridge, theoretically speaking, with uncomplicated and then the other two talents, it's roughly about 30 to 35% extra damage than you would be getting without any gear set on. But running this, you get Skull MC Gloves, which is 16% damage, and then Tenacious Mask, which is 10%. But you could also just run Tenacious with Alphabridge, but you can also run a Double Veiled Shot Off, which gives you Competent, and then you can also run Tenacious and Short Bow, which is nice because you can spam nades, and you really can't put a damage percentage on being able to instantly nade people. It's like insanely powerful, especially in team fights, just to be able to be like, alright, focus this guy, alright, I'm gonna throw a nade on him, dead. Or, oh, there's this whole group of people right here, I'm gonna shock them, they're all shocked, just dead. If you're in a group or if you're playing in a group, it's crazy. Do I think this build is better than Alphabridge? In terms of damage, no. In terms of versatility and usability, it's a possibility. I said a lot of itties right there. It's a possibility that it's better because Specialize is nice, you get the extra skill power, Nimble is nice, extra survivability, Tenacious is nice, extra damage, Skull and Sea Gloves, extra damage. You could switch Tenacious for Pharaohs, which is kind of hard to put a percentage on, but again, that would be a decent amount of versatility with Pharaohs, or with Refresh giving you more survivability, Shortbow giving you instant nade spam, or Bliss Holster, EMP people with a pistol while applying harmful onto them, but then you don't have Competent as a sidearm. And then you can also run an M44 as opposed to being tied to running 2 M4s or something like that. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff to take in when using a high-end build, but I think it's a good substitute for Alphabridge. It's definitely the second best PvP build in the game. But in terms of damage, it's not going to be able to keep up with Alphabridge, but it's a very close second, and like I said, there's a lot of versatility when using it, and it's a lot of fun to use overall. So, yeah guys, I definitely recommend trying it out if you have the pieces for it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like, as that helps me out a ton. And subscribe for videos similar to this one. I'll see you later, guys. Peace.